Well, it's high time that I drag my butt back down here in the basement and get something done on this radio. It's been nice outside. I've been taking a break from this and went back to work this past Monday, so there hasn't been a whole lot of spare time to throw around towards this thing. I know, excuses, but still, we got to get this done. If you remember where we left off last time, we had pulled the mica out of this old IF transformer, and we were trying to determine what the 5 leads did. We know what 4 of them did, but not this 5th one. Well, the 5th one, find a pencil real quick. This 5th one, right here, was determined to be a center tap, and we no longer need that because we removed those capacitors in there, so we can pretty much do away with that. So what we know we have to do is hook a 100 picofarad capacitor in line with these leads that go to each one of these tuners, the tuning coils on the transformer here. So what we need to redo, according to Chad's video, is re-glue our leads right here, cut off these other little tabs inside of here we don't need in case they would ever make connection with anything. They won't be there no more. And then check for continuity across our coils on each side, and then put it back down here where it belongs. No going back now. Them terminals are long gone up in there. They've been snipped off. The center tap was left. We will not use that when we put this cam back in. And I wanted to check my continuity across my coils. So I've got 1 meter hooked up to one side, and via all these long wires I got the other meter hooked up over here to the other side. We have 15.1 ohm on one side, and we have 12.7 ohm on the other side. That's all we need to know. We still have continuity across there. None of these little hair-like wires have been broke, thank God. So let's go ahead. We'll put our little dab of super glue on there like Chad said we have to do. I'm going to put a little bit here and here, and then flip it over and do the same thing on the other side. And we'll slide it back in that can, remount it, and put the wires back on it. One down, the glue is in. Kind of hard to see on this, I know, but we have laid our glue in right along these little channels right here. Right here, and right here, and we flipped it over and did the same thing on the other side. Now I use this Loctite, that's a gel type super glue. I just barely had enough to do this one. I might have to have my wife bring me home a little bit more from work this afternoon. But we do have one ready to go. And what I did before I made sure everything was where it belonged is made notes over here in my drawing again of what I had for continuity and ohms across terminal 3 and 4 and 1 and 2. I would think that they would have been closer than where they're at, and I wonder if that varies some depending on where the where it's tuned at, where that adjustment's tuned at, if that varies the ohms some. So one come out 12.7, the other one come out 15.1. So we'll have to get it back together and get them caps installed and see what it does. Reinstalled the transformer back into its metallic case, and we're going to give it one last check to make sure when we were sliding it in we didn't break no wires. So there again, on this side we had 12.6. It varies between 12.6 and 12.8, so that's still acceptable. And over here on this meter we still have spot on 15.1 ohms. Awesome. Everything looks good. I probably tested it way more than what I should have, but I want to make sure that nothing's going to go wrong with this, because them wires are so fragile. I swear to Christ, you'd blow on them, you'd break them off. So never hurts to be a little bit more cautious than what you have to be. Let's get this puppy put back where it belongs. That IF can has been reinstalled back in its proper spot right here, and loosely wired in right now. I haven't tacked nothing, because I was going to put my capacitors, my small picofarad capacitors, right on top of that lug and solder everything at one time. Well, I thought that I had the correct or something close to a 100 picofarad capacitor to put in there to make up for those mica ones that I took out. But it turns out, going through my stash, I have nothing anywhere close. I have 151 or I had 68. Now sure, I could combine some of these and make the appropriate values and whatnot, or close to it. But what I really don't want to cobber this all together. I want this to look respectful. You know, I want it to look nice when we're done. Not something that just was thrown together in a rush to make it work. I want this to be right. So I'm going to have to go to the computer and order some capacitors. It's alright, I need some other stuff anyway. So hopefully in 3 to 5 days we'll have them. But that don't stop this project. In the meantime, I can tear apart this other IF transformer down here, get the silver mica sheets out of that one, get it all modified, and tack solder it back in, and we can be that much farther along when them new capacitors do come to be put in. Hopefully all we'll have to do is tack them in and we'll be good to go. We'll see though. Well, just completed my order. This time I decided to use just radios. I'd never tried them before to order capacitors or resistors through. They're out of Canada, so hopefully it'll be the same 3 to 5 day delivery period like it was for say WJOE, or to order from Mauser or MCM or Element 14, all them companies here in the States. We'll give them a try. They had a pretty nice selection. You could pay via either credit card or PayPal, which I don't have PayPal. I know a lot more things are going to that. Nice wide selection of capacitors and stuff, orange drops, tubular axle capacitors, metal polyester films, and polypropylene capacitors, 500 volt silver dipped mica capacitors, Mylars. These are something like I ordered. They're not 1600 volt, they're 500. They're the pretty blue color. Electrolytic capacitors, radials and axle leads, dual section electrolytic capacitors, electrolytic single sections. Here's cross the line AC caps, interference suppression capacitors, tubular axle capacitors, and they have a whole list of stuff that's resistors. Very useful website, and a lot of this, I mean, they stock clear down to 1 microfarad, 0.47 microfarad, and the picofarads, I think they go, I don't even have to look again. I mean, it's just down to hardly anything. So if you're looking for some hard to find caps, this website has a lot of good information on there, so I should say feel free to browse it and find what you need. It worked for me. Let's get back over to that radio. Our second IF can has been extricated. This one was about as much a pain in the butt to get out of there as the other one was, because all the wires snaked up underneath the power cord and went every which direction. And that crap soldering, yet again, you couldn't heat up with a 40-watt iron, and I didn't bring my welder gun in today. But I just ended up having enough wire on these 2 red leads to snip it. One went to the rectifier, one went to the 12BA6. We got plenty of room on them wires that we can push back the insulation. And that is push back wire. You just push it back and you're good to go. And we can reconnect it to the IF can. We had one resistor we had to remove. We had a 0.01 capacitor we had to get out of the way, and we had a lead to a brown, black, yellow resistor. So everything's out of the way, and I was going to say something weird that they did here, and this was like this when I started working on this radio. I don't know how well you'll be able to see it. Around this ground lug on the bottom of the tuning capacitor right there, there's a loop. And what that loop is, that's the other side of this brown, black, yellow resistor right here. Nobody ever pulled that tight and connected it around that lug when this thing was done at the factory. I've never disturbed that solder joint unless somebody else has, but that loop is way outside of there. And I also found another poor solder joint in here that I don't believe that I bumped loose was loose already. Was this ground connection that goes from the 12BA6 back over to pin number 3 on the transformer, on the IF transformer. There was a few things in here that might have caused some more trouble than just silver mica disease, so we'll have to find out. But for this one, to get that out of there, that white wire was easier to take off of the rectifier tube at pin number 3 than it was to try to unsolder that underneath of the power cord and one of the filter capacitor leads and all that stuff. It was just a heck of a lot easier to get out of there in the long run, so that's what we did. A lot easier to put back in there too. So now that we got this one out, it's time to pull it apart and do the same thing. And I did find a name on the bottom of these. These are Automatic Manufacturing Corporations. The company Automatic made these. And I looked up these patent dates on top. They were used anywhere from 1946 clear up to 1951. And here we are outside of the can again. This one's got a lot of crud inside of it, a lot of chunks of dirt and dust, and look at all that stuff that fell out of there. "60 years of crap." So we have to do the same thing with this one as we did the other one. We'll put it in the vise in our little clamp, put the can back on it, put it in our little clamp, and we'll put it in the vise and drill that rivet out of the bottom again. Take our little piece out of there. Looks just like this one. It's just like that. And pull all those silver mica sheets out of there. Snip off the leads, ohm it out, put it back in the can and remount it. Sounds easy, doesn't it? It's not bad. Okay, now I want to show you the reason why Chad wanted us to put a drop of glue on each one of these leads. On this IF transformer that only has 4 contacts, remember the other one had 5, this one's only got 4. When you bend them tabs up to get that mica sheet out right there, this right here, that's what we're after, that's what's went bad inside of that. You bend them little tabs up to get that sheet out of there, and what that does is release these tabs and they'll slide. Now one of them slid uphill just a little bit and I had to resolder the wire back on him. Those little hair-like wires, they're just as fragile as a breath of air. Be really careful with them. Make sure you do this, take time and do it. This one was a little bit more complicated, you know, because you had to watch more things than what the other one was. The other one, when I cut the lugs off, they fit pretty snug. This one here, I don't know. When I was desoldering it, I had to heat them up. It kind of opened up the plastic away from the lugs or what, but you have to really be careful with that. So now we'll go ahead, we'll let this set, we'll let the glue dry, we'll check for continuity, or ohm it out I should say. We'll check it and ohm it out, and we'll go ahead and remount it in the chassis, put the cam back on it and remount it, and then temporarily tack our wires back on, and when our caps get here, we'll be good to go. That's going to be about it for now. Get this all put back together, and hopefully the next video I have, we'll have our capacitors. We'll have the capacitors installed, and maybe we'll hear this thing sing to us once again, or at least do something. Jeez. Been a long time coming. So for now, guys, thanks for watching, and more to come later.